Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm William Chen.
And I'm Sarah Watt.
And each month at Cinema in Context, we discuss two films, one current and one retrospective, with some connection. It could be the same director, the same actor, or a similar theme. This month we are discussing Crazy Rich Asians, which came out this year, and My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which came out in 2002. The connection being that they are both wedding films with some kind of cultural clash as a central part of the story. So let's start with Crazy Rich Asians. William, would you like to give us an overview of Crazy Rich Asians?
Yes, of course. So Crazy Rich Asians is based on the book of the same name. It is a... Oh gosh, I mean, we haven't seen rom-coms do this well in a long time. A smash hit rom-com, breaking all the records. Long story short, it is about a Asian American, Rachel Chu, who goes to her boyfriend's home in Singapore to meet the parents. Little does she know that her boyfriend is actually the scion of one of the most richest, most powerful families in Singapore. Hilarity and misunderstanding ensues, and yeah, as you say, Jeremy, it's a culture clash.
Excellent. And My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Sarah, give us an overview.
Well, if we can cast our minds back 16 years,
Whoa.
There was also a hit rom-com about, as you say, a cultural clashing wedding. Unfortunately, it has not dated well, but back in 2002, My Big Fat Greek Wedding caused quite a stir. Written by and starring Nia Vardalos. She plays the young woman. Well, in fact, she's 30, so let's be honest, she's not young at all, and she's possibly a virgin, so therefore she is the preeminent 30-year-old virgin Tula, who lives a henpecked life, living at home with her overbearing, very, very Greek parents, massively extended family, until one day she falls in love with Ian. Ian, played by John Corbett, who is as white American as they come, and therefore not immediately taken to by the Greek family.
Excellent. And it's important to say that we will be having a spoiler-filled discussion. So if you haven't seen either of these films and do not want any spoilers, I would suggest pausing this podcast and returning to it at a later date. Right, well, let's jump in with My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Well, on the note of spoilers, I think it's worth saying that the poster for My Big Fat Greek Wedding does indeed have them both in their wedding outfits. So it's a little bit of a giveaway that it's all going to be okay and the wedding's going to go ahead.
But the film's called My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Well, exactly. But it could have been like a lead-up to the Big Fat Greek Wedding, and then it all falls apart and they work out that actually they don't want to be together after all, and that would have been gritty. But no, this is 2002.
And then there's a voiceover, and that was My Big Fat
Greek Wedding. So
did she say that?
No. For the grittier reboot.
Oh, right.
But basically, the whole film is just like a fait accompli. I guess what was interesting about Big Fat Greek Wedding back in the day is, for those of us who aren't Greek and weren't Greek back then, yeah, sure, maybe we learned a whole lot about the culture, and some of those bits make for quite entertaining moments in the film. And even though the father... I mean, oh my gosh, the overacting is shocking, and I'm sure that nowadays the whole thing would be really distasteful in terms of cultural stereotypes and whatnot. But the father, the thing that I found most interesting is that the dad's conceit, or party trick, if you will, is that he can tell you the etymology of any word from any foreign language, any other non-Greek language, as harking back to ancient Greek or Greek, which I found fascinating. As a rather nerdy English teacher, I thought that was great. The rest of it, what a load of rubbish. It's all just big hair and hysterics.
You hadn't seen the film before this week, is that correct?
No, I saw it. I'm sure that I saw it in approximately 2002.
Right, okay.
And as I say, I was a smidgen younger and obviously a lot less discerning, and in those days this was still kind of fun, although I do think that even then it was a bit rubbish.
We watched it growing up. My mother loved that film, and so I have quite fond memories of this movie. But I will agree that it has not dated well. My favourite parts of the film still are the family and the family characters, and I despite it being overacted, as you said, Sarah. I just think there are some really great moments. So the Windex makes me laugh every time.
Oh my gosh, that joke is played 15 times, and then you get the payoff of him putting it on his zit or something on his wedding day. Oh, funny if it wasn't so gross.
I don't mind the joke being repeated because it's not. For me, it's not. It's actually seeing how other people react to it. Like I love when he sprays it on his sister-in-law, and she's like, "Oh, get it off me! Like, what are you doing?" I love my favorite moment in the whole film is when the auntie tells Ian Miller's parents about her twin.
Yes.
Twin in her neck. That is just.
I had I mean, it's not related to any plot to the movie. That is also my favorite part of the movie. I mean, the first time I saw this movie was on a plane, I think in 2003. So it wasn't that memorable. I remember not liking it that much. But man, that twin scene, I was cracking up, and just how they build up to it, and it's so nonsensical and out of the blue. And she starts talking about like spinal columns coming out of a lump in her neck.
But I mean, I love the truth of it as well, which is that. I mean, I've got an auntie that will just randomly tell these personal stories about her life to friends or, you know. I mean, it's so relatable.
I do think one of the challenges is probably in 2002, I didn't find Ian's parents quite so objectionable. And I don't even mean sort of objectionable in a... I'm not even having like a moral objection to them. I just think as characters nowadays, they're incredibly trite, that they are so buttoned up and so white and and so ignorant. Because it would just be ridiculous nowadays, and I don't think it plays for laughs.
I'm pretty glad that we're already jumping to Ian's parents. Because let's just say that if I were an actor and I were white and I were, middle-aged, that's exactly the kind of role I would want to play. They're also overplaying it, but in a way that is so
underplayed.
That's right. But it's so dumb in a really good way. If that makes any sense. Again, this is back in 2002, and it does seem really, really trite now.
Yeah.
But I just thought that the horrified expressions and everything was so. It was so beautifully innocent in a way. Like there's a very simple punchline, and it's so simple that the movie needs to underscore every scene they're in with like classical music in the background. That really took me off. I do
love though that their moment of kind of giving in is the fact that the husband goes, "Come on, Harry." Do you understand? That's the end of their little storyline. I mean, I think that's a very funny moment as well. And that
the scene where they're downing ouzo and the camera goes, "Oh man."
I mean
the techniques are terrible. The wipes and the
and again, old feels old. And
it's the same year as like Chicago and Two Towers, and like Chicago looks amazing still.
Yeah,
but this is all that.
No, I hate slapstick, as we know, and I hated I just thought it was so cringy. Her having to look so, mussy hair and glasses and wonky face. And I'm not being rude about her actual face. I mean, she wore it as a wonky expression until she fell in love, and her having to be that geeky, nerdy, awful, and then when she has zhuzhed herself up and she's running the travel agency and he goes past and then she's wearing the headphones and then she falls down and I hate slapstick so much.
Sorry, I thought that was pretty funny.
That is not funny.
I love slapstick. Someone falling over is always going to be funny.
No, it was dumb. But now, let me talk about John Corbett. Because, nowadays I'm looking and I'm going, is he wearing a fleece? Are you kidding me?
Do you know the moment where I love that auntie character. She is actually my favourite character of the whole film. Yeah. When she touches his hair, that was improvised because she forgot her lines, and then they carried on with the scene, and they kept it in the movie.
Well,
let me touch your hair.
That's a nice moment, but I thought, I mean, John Corbett is he's ridiculous, and him outside. But maybe he has to be ridiculous because if he was too cool or too suave, he wouldn't suit Tula, and he wouldn't fall in love with Tula.
He's so gross.
He's so gross.
He's so gross.
Back in those days, he was, if not then, he was on the cusp of being Sarah Jessica Parker's love interest in Sex and the City.
Oh, right.
And that's what made him a superstar. So I feel as though people bought into him being this romantic hero because he is Aiden, and I'll give them that. Fine, I'll let them have it. But otherwise,
Also,
what a dweeb!
What an irresponsible teacher.
Leaving the room. I know. When he left the room, I was like, "What are you doing?"
No, do you know what riled me such that I tweeted about it? The thing that outraged me the most about it was that she came into the school without signing in.
Yes.
She didn't
Health and
sign
safety.
it. She's all having like a wussy moment, such that he has to leave his classroom where he is improving young people's minds.
No, he's like, excuse
deal
me
with
for a sec. Don't be too loud. My kids would rip the classroom to shreds.
Oh my gosh!
Would press their faces against the window.
Open the door.
I would be like, this better be an emergency, because otherwise, I'm not here to pander to your emotional insecurities when I'm in the middle of a class.
Yeah.
What are you, crazy?
You'd be like, what do you want?
So I thought that was dreadful.
Let's go to Vegas.
I mean, I would probably stand in the door ready to close the door and at a moment's notice, just in case everything got too out of control.
Stand with your foot and holding it open. Yeah.
It's amazing, eh? Like I find so many scenes in films and TV that have teachers or classrooms so very rarely display anything remotely. Like even just the setup. Maybe it's different in American schools, but like when all the tables are all set up as like an exam mode, I'm like, that's a terrible way to set up a classroom.
That's how every classroom, every desk is separated and into rows in America. That's how they do it, and they write with pencils.
Wow.
Which I used to think was a conceit of American movies, but it's real.
Wow, okay, so really their education system is reflective of this kind of sort of dictatorship of the teacher at the front of the room.
I'm not sure.
Wow.
But
okay.
Anyway, so enough of Ian the teacher. I just thought that, I don't know. I was just like,
can we go back to the point that the movie... Again, I actually quite like the movie watching it a second time.
You like everything.
I enjoy this, I enjoy Barbarella, and I enjoy all sorts of Gore Verbinski's work. But like, I found a lot to like about it. What I didn't like about it was what you guys were saying before. It is ugly as sin.
Yeah.
It is just
the film is ugly?
The film is an ugly movie. It's a moving image. Everything's really flat.
Yeah.
The wipes, the colors are really muddy. And you guys, again, are absolutely right. This came out at a time when people were really doing cool stuff with digital.
Yeah.
If you think about what Lucas was doing with Attack of the Clones, I mean, it looks really dated now, but the colors,
time,
are popping out of the screen.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I think what it is that this was based on a one-woman show that she did. Tom Hanks went and watched it, and his wife went and watched it or something.
Yeah, Rita did. Yeah. And they're both executive producers.
And so I think it's all very over the top. Yes, yeah. It's all over the top because she had to be over the top in order to define her characters. And I think
that's this whole, and I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm so riled up by this. This is the whole danger, I suppose, of taking something that's designed for the stage and, as you say, is a one-woman show where she has to perform in an over-the-top way in theatre to convey different characters, and then expecting somebody with not a huge amount of film or cinema experience to be able to replicate that on the small screen.
Yeah.
And that's why everything's so OTT.
You know, I just thought of a connection right now that I just had never occurred to me. But number 2, the play and film by Tor Fraser. And I studied that film with my level 2, my year 12 students, and I have for the last few years. It's a beautiful, wonderful New Zealand film. New Zealand film. And I read the play this year, and the play is far more over the top. It's far more comedic, and it has to be because Madeline Sami had to play all those different characters. And the film is not that. The film is quite beautiful and quite melancholic, and a study of pain and family and tradition and culture, and it's wonderful. And that's an example of where they've taken a one woman show and they've done a really wonderful job. And if we're going to compare in terms of the way the films look, have you seen number 2?
No, I have not.
I highly suggest it, and it's beautifully shot and just a wonderful example of how you can do it right. But I agree with you. It looks, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, it looks terrible.
You know, it reminds me of Mamma Mia, except that Mamma Mia looked incredible, but it was also a wedding in a Greek island. But Mamma Mia, of course, translated from a stage show into a movie, and somehow that worked.
Well, it's beautiful. But
it is just as over the top.
Yeah.
And yet, for some reason, look, let's be fair. I have to simmer down because Big Fat Greek Wedding worked in its day. It was 2002. People were probably still reeling from the horror that it had been inflicted upon America 6 months prior.
Yeah.
Everyone's still dressing like they're in the 90s, which is a whole other issue, but never mind, because that was a weird thing about the 2000s. People didn't start dressing better for quite some time, and yet they were already into the next decade. That was weird. But I don't know.
Yeah, all right. Let's move on to Crazy Rich Asians. I am going to jump in and say I had a blast watching this movie. It's not perfect by any means, but I laughed a lot. But I wonder if we will be looking back in 13, 16, whatever it's been, many years, and not be as kind. Just like we are to Big Fat Greek Wedding.
I think... I mean, as William said right at the very beginning, it's breaking box office records everywhere. And we all know that some of that box office comes from an Asian audience going, thank you, finally we get to see ourselves. But everybody's going, so it isn't just Asian audiences.
I think that all of culture's like, yeah, thank you. Yeah. I know I was.
It was pretty incredible, like, to see, you know, all the news about Asian American audiences, like, buying out theaters and this big, you know, what they call it, like, hashtag Golden Open.
Nice.
And then, like, to see the legs on this thing, like, the drop in box office every week was a record low. Like 6%, where movies would usually drop, what, 30 or 40?
Yeah.
And people just really wanted to see this movie. Like, incredible stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's that same similar sort of thing with My Big Fat Greek Wedding, in that it's come out at a time where we are so saturated with big, massive blockbuster films, and just to bring back something that is about family and about romance and it follows a lot of those tropes we haven't seen for a while in a cinema is really refreshing.
What you say is true, but when you say romance, I think romance is the only area where, not Big Fat Greek Asians, what's it? Sorry, no. Where Crazy Rich Asians, to me, is not actually a particularly romantic movie, because for starters, I know she does a runner at the end, and then there's a ludicrous number of days where she lies on a bed and doesn't eat. I mean, my gosh, when does she get bored? And the fact that she's not answering her phone, and the fact that Nick is so beautifully patient, what a gorgeous man as well.
What a meat puppet.
Isn't he lovely? But anyway, there was no actual sort of, and I'm not being mean, but there was no chemistry or anything that was really at stake between them. I thought they were both really nice looking, nice people, good people. You knew they were right for each other. And the conflict was not about
you're right.
him being seen with another woman and she misinterprets it, or her doing something or anything like that at all. It was good old Michelle Yeoh sticking her oar in. So to me, there was no romantic intrigue about it.
It's definitely a film of 4 strong female characters at the centre, I think. I mean, the men are there as just props to their storyline. And I think you're right, it's not really about...
It's not about Nick and Rachel?
Rachel,
yeah. Not really. I mean, it's not really about...
But it did annoy me that he hadn't told her anything. And, you know, she kind of brings it up in the film, but he's pretty culpable and all of this. Oh, you mean,
what, you never told me your family was so wealthy?
Well, it just didn't make any sense. I don't know, like obviously, you know, the movie's not based in reality at all. But that one thing, I just felt like really underdeveloped their relationship. Like, why would he?
Well, I mean, I can understand why he might not if he's trying to be, like, they're trying to sell us, the audience, that he's kind of humble and that he's not about the money. Not that he's I think he came off, unfortunately, as a bit disingenuous. Oh, really, it's not that big of a deal. I would like to interpret it more as, I personally do not value the wealth. I have no intention of taking over the company, blah, 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 blah. Therefore, I don't want to divulge that part of me. The only part where I took umbrage at him for not having done it is because you've got to be prepared. Yeah. And don't you let me rock up there with a suitcase full of inadequate clothes, because that is humiliating. You know?
See, I think that I take that same position, not from the clothes perspective, but just from the emotional perspective. It's like, you're about to meet my family. Like, tell me something about them. I would be really angry.
But I guess, guys, look, I mean, it's the dramatic conceit of the movie, isn't it?
True.
You know what I mean? Like, if he'd told her on the plane and she'd packed the right clothes, we wouldn't have a story. It would have been a short film. You know.
Well, when she gets there, she bumps into Awkwafina, who I thought was just
super fun.
She was the sassy friend, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And
she's so good at playing the sassy friend.
She's so good at just playing herself, really, isn't she? Because isn't she that same character in Ocean's 8?
Yeah.
And
I thought she was way better in this than Ocean's 8.
Well, she had more to do.
Yeah.
But she's super fun. Like, I could listen to her and watch her all the time.
Yeah, and Michelle Yeoh is she's always amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, I like that you bring up those two actors, because I thought they were the highlight of the movie for me. I actually didn't think too much of the romantic leads. I thought the acting overall was okay, but Awkwafina and Michelle Yeoh just stood out, like shining diamonds.
I thought that, and I've forgotten her name, but the cousin who has the cheating husband, I thought she did a great job.
Astrid.
Astrid, yes.
Well, she's his sister, isn't she? Isn't Astrid his sister? Nick's sister?
Yeah.
It's his cousin, isn't it?
Because they're the two kids at the very beginning.
She's the kind one.
Oh.
Well, anyway, they're both Eurasian. Oh, well, a lot of people in the show are Eurasian, and that's a whole other conversation. But, I think Astrid and Nick are brother-sister. Oh, okay. But anyway, her...
But yeah, she was an interesting storyline, because she was the subplot, because everything else was through Rachel's lens, and then you had Astrid's story alongside of it. It was an interesting addition to the film, but I thought just some of her acting was just... her heartbreak and her poise, I thought, was really impressive.
I tell you what, though, we talked about how Greek Wedding was incredibly flat and dull to look at, and this film.
Should we all go to Singapore?
Oh my gosh,
Let's all go to Singapore.
We have already booked. I'm leaving on February the 17th.
I'm just donating money to the Singapore Travel Board.
Now. I think we're the executive producers. We're literally going on the way to Europe.
We're literally going to Singapore on December 12th.
Good Lord.
Oh, wow.
But honestly, I would have come out and booked it after that, seeing that film for sure. And I did sort of say to my husband, I wonder whether Singapore Tourism Board is an executive producer on the...
Gotta be. I mean, so many of those shots look like an airline commercial.
Yeah.
And to let them use, I mean...
all those landmarks.
Yeah. Right. And the Singapore government is not the most lenient or sort of,
Jeez, they make the botanical gardens look like some sort of futuristic, like, future city.
Yes.
And then nobody's there as well. Like, you just book it out.
Well, yes. I probably would for, like, the biggest wedding of the century.
And they show you all the parts of Singapore, right? They show you the street side.
Merlion.
Yeah, and the street
Chinatown.
food, Chinatown. Oh, the canals, and then you have overhead shots.
Yep.
All of it.
Newton Circus or whatever, the new kind of cool food stalls. All of it. It's fabulous.
On that note, so they arrive. This is my only kind of key frustration with the film. Apart from some of the acting being a bit average, I thought when they arrive to Singapore, they are met with the bride and groom to be.
Yes.
And they have this wonderful night out. And the bride, she seems really down to earth. She's kind of very chatty. She's very sort of carefree. And then she comes back into the movie at the hen's night.
Yes.
And she's this kind
she's an
screaming, kind of airhead heiress. It's like her character completely changes in the film. And I don't know whether that's the actor, just because I don't think her performance was that great either, or whether it's the writing, but that character is all over the show, and then she has all of these bitchy friends, and it's like, that's not the character that we were really introduced to at the start of the film. And
I've not read the book. I don't assume any of us has read the book, but I imagine, I don't know, but what I'm extrapolating from that is that Rachel's sort of not tricked in a mean way, but she arrives and she's like, this is going to be a great holiday, and then things sort of start to become apparent that everybody is completely materialistic and superficial, which brings me to one of my biggest issues with the whole story. And I do get that it's called Crazy Rich Asians, and therefore it wasn't like I'm shocked and affronted, but I did find the consumerism and the materialism and the wealth and all that a little bit gross. That's a whole segue.
Well, let's talk about that, because I felt that as well, and I think I probably have forgotten about that, but that was the big thing when I was watching the movie. I was like, I don't like being around these people. I guess Rachel's our eyes into it, isn't she?
Yeah, and Rachel's not even that likable. Like, I didn't like that much.
She's an economics professor at NYU.
Oh, I did not hear this. The fifth time or the sixth time they talked about this?
But you realise that Tula, in Greek Wedding, she's been, quote, learning about computers. So I think we've gone up a few steps in terms of, female representation.
I did think that when she's like, there's a whole lot of new things, there's a whole lot of new technology, this is my big figure reading, and I'm like, what? That's not how computers work.
Dad,
like, sure
I've been learning about computers. Well, anyway, so Back to Rachel, though, the economics professor at NYU.
Game theory.
That's
Oh,
right.
boy, and then it
because
comes
that's
back at the end. No, jeez, when I came back, I just
see that
groaned.
coming?
I loved it. I loved
With
it.
the mahjong.
But I love games. You love games.
Yeah, I love it.
One thing I really liked about Michelle Yeoh is she didn't play. Well, she doesn't, but she didn't play it for laughs at all. And you always need, don't you? You need not your pantomime villain, but actually somebody with her gravitas to play somebody quite complex.
Yeah.
Because she's not a 100% dislikable character.
I just love Michelle Yeoh, and I agree. I think that she brings with her the weight of her oeuvre to that role, and you believe that she's the leader of this dynasty.
Yeah.
Can I say something that might be a little contentious?
Please.
Go.
So in both movies, Michelle Yeoh's character and what's the dad called in My Perfect Greek Wedding?
Gus.
Sorry, I don't know the actor's name. I really like both characters, and I think I really empathized with both of them in their respective films. So much so, again, I already said I found Rachel to be really annoying, but I wanted to see their side of the story.
Yeah, right.
It's, even like with Gus and his overacting and stuff, I got a little choked up when he was talking about, like I came to this country with $6 and I did this all for you, and now this is what you do. And with Michelle Yeoh, and I find so much of what she says to be really logical. Like, of course she would want to be really picky. Like, this is everything that her family has built up, and to throw it away because of what she say, like American ideals about love or something.
I love when she says, "You're American, and all you care about is your own happiness."
Yeah,
we care about something that lasts much longer. And
that was amazing.
That's a really compelling critique. I mean, it's pretty ironic that how materialistic the whole film is, but it is a critique of consumerism.
Yeah, it is, but I think that Michelle Yeoh's character is utterly hypocritical, and I really objected to her, she and her church friends doing their Bible reading.
I love that. I love that was the introduction.
And it isn't played.
Those characters.
Luckily, it isn't played in a sneery way. It's never raised again that she is hypocritical or that we should be laughing at Christians, because I hate that. I think I think it's a cheap trope in inferior films, but bottom line is she lives like a queen and is quite cold and not that compassionate and is supposedly a God-fearing person, and ultimately is trying to boss her son around and rule his life no matter what. So
but it's for the good of the family, right? That's not just her son, it's everyone. She's kind of like this peak of this weird ass pyramid.
I did love that the grandmother turned out just to be a total bitch.
that was great. For a minute there she was going to be the lovely softie, wasn't
that was going to make it all right. And I really liked that they gave Michelle Yeoh that, and I love that it was all told through that ring. I thought that the symbology it worked really well, and they built that green emerald or whatever it was.
The grandmother was really cool. So I watched this movie with my family, and my mum immediately recognized her as like a really famous Chinese actress, of the Beijing.
Because she doesn't speak English, does she? Didn't she speak Chinese through the whole film?
I think she does speak English because she was American trained as well.
Oh wow! Okay.
But it's just. Okay, I'll get to more of this as our discussion continues. What was really interesting was her accent. Like when she spoke Chinese, it was a very traditional Beijing, proper accent.
Proper Mandarin,
and it just seems so out of place in Singapore.
Because are they speaking Hokkien or?
Hokkien or Cantonese.
Right.
And of course the English accents also kind of took me out of it as well.
Yes.
Like I don't know if the ultra rich do speak like that. But my view of Singapore is it's much more of a Singlish speaking
Absolutely.
country.
Well, do you know what's interesting? You know the two funny aunties in Crazy Asians? What's it? Crazy Rich Asians. The two funny aunties who are all, come over here la, and all are talking like that. And then suddenly, boom, they're at the Botanical Gardens, and they do start to speak like, come and see the flower as it blooms. And they are speaking in, as you say, almost an RP kind of English. And then in a couple of scenes later, it's like they're at home and they've taken their shoes off and put their feet up, and they revert to Singlish again. So and that was only then that I was like, oh, hang on a second, they were talking differently just before. So maybe it is an affectation of the wealthy, whereas Michelle Yeoh's character does speak She actually speaks like Michelle, doesn't
Yeah.
she? So speaks in quite a nice sort of rounded, but quite British. But of course, Nick and Astrid, their dad is English. He never appears in the film, does he?
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that the dad never appears.
Yeah, so the dad is English, and that's why they are very, very Eurasian.
I thought the introduction scene, the kind of James Bond prologue, was a weird.
Yeah.
It was a really weird way to open the movie. And when I was watching it, I didn't think it was weird because I thought, this would be important. But it kind of wasn't.
Well, all it taught me is that he's a little brat.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely hate bratty children, including little bratty Chinese boys, often, who are, the mollycoddled of the family. So he walks all this mud into this hotel. Again, this is very triggering for me.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't approve of their racism. I thought it was over the top and stupid, to be honest with you. I thought that was a load of BS.
Yeah.
The whole kind of, we don't serve your sort
Also,
here.
that was so like something out of 2002.
Yeah,
I kind of loved it.
But I guess I guess that would have been right because the kid was. Did it say 2002?
Oh, that was 1995.
Oh,
It was
gosh,
a strange way to...
no, sorry, I mean 2002 as in from a movie in 2002.
Yeah.
It was just so tried and, jeez.
But what I mean is, because that scene was 1995, perhaps people would have been more racist and said, oh, well, we don't serve your kind here. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable down the road, blah, blah, blah. But that kid walks in, mud all over the place, and then it transpires that he's suddenly the heir to this fortune and the son of the owner of the hotel. And he does a sneaky little look as he walks towards the elevator. And
it's a
what
really
a
weird, and it's introducing Michelle Yeoh, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
But then that character trait of her buying up stuff it's not really relevant.
It is irrelevant, and it must be in the book as a prologue for how they managed to suddenly own most of Singapore, Malaysia, and a bunch of other places, don't they? Oh, they went to Rawa Island. So I lived in Singapore in the mid-'80s, just for a couple of years, right? My lifestyle was not quite as lavish. Needless to say, although we did all speak rather like Nick and Astrid, if truth be told. But we used to go to Rawa Island, which is where Nick and his mate are out on that, like a pontoon.
Oh, right.
We used to go there and have for expats living in Singapore. To be fair, a holiday in Rawa was a sort of a more down at heel affair. It was probably more like going to Rarotonga or somewhere than Hawaii. That sort of thing. But I was quite thrilled by that as a sort of a personal landmark for me. I just thought I'd throw that in.
Cool. Oh, lovely.
Because Rawa's actually a little island off of Malaysia. It reminded me of Sing, so it's not even Singapore,
It looked like Halong Bay in Vietnam,
right?
Those rock formations,
right?
So
Anyway, that's just an aside.
What about the Awkwafina's family? King Leong and
King Jong.
Was it King Jong?
Yeah.
I laughed a lot.
And the crazy Singaporean mother. Like, that mother was legit Singaporean, but he's American. Oh, he was so funny at the beginning, wasn't he?
I just loved that every scene. It was like it reminded me of a Baz Luhrmann movie. Just the outrageousness.
I actually did enjoy him.
And just the shots, all the reaction shots.
Yeah.
And how it was just all constructed through editing. And the creepy brother.
Well, then there is the cliche of the creepy brother. The slightly tubby, nerdy,
I went with
girlfriend.
my flatmate and her boyfriend, and she turned to me and she was like, talking about the sassy friend, she was like, I'm just waiting for the gay friend. And literally she said the gay friend turns up on the screen.
Yeah. And he spoke all beautifully too. So there was there were a lot of people speaking a bit posh, to be honest.
Yeah.
You talked about a few weeks ago, William, about how you found the makeover to be really unsatisfying.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what you guys thought. I expect makeover montages to be more spectacular. That's what I want in my movies. And I just thought that the final result of the makeover was just so like...
You didn't like that dress, right? Which dress did you prefer?
No, I don't like any of those dresses.
I see, okay.
It has one of the best jokes in the movie when someone calls that dress, you look like a slutty Ebola virus.
Yeah.
Which is a fantastic writing.
About the pale blue dress?
No, about the pink one with all the bits on it.
Yes, that's true. I thought the pale blue one was rather lovely.
I thought it was just like, this is what we got. Alrighty.
What about their wedding though, with the water coming down?
Oh my gosh! And her dipping her gold-painted feet in through again triggering for me. Because I was just like, oh. but wow, wasn't that over
Sarah,
the
this is
top?
giving me flashbacks of our Mother review, where you're just so freaking out at people sitting on the counter.
Yes, A, it's taboo, B, that's going to break, and she asked you not to sit on it.
I forgot the movie even existed.
Well, it was just that scene, really. That's all that Mother is. It's the scene where the people all like flood in and have an impromptu party, and she says, "Please don't sit on the kitchen counter," and they do. Dreadful. Anyway, we're not talking about Mother.
But the wedding with the water, which I guess I'm going to segue into something that I really found weird. Just a lot of the movie I found weird.
Yeah.
But that soundtrack, man.
Oh, you didn't like the lady singing Wise Men Fall?
No. Well, I guess all the Chinese music, which it's all music from it's post-war or even during it's wartime / post-war music. All really old, like 50s ballads.
Or Coldplay's Yellow sung and Material Girl.
Material Girl was really good.
I love Material.
I liked those songs
that
being
was cool.
Chinese versions.
But like, what was the point? I was thinking, so if you had a white version of this movie and you replace the songs with like Vera Lynn, that's what those songs are, right?
Yeah.
They're all about the war and how we're gonna survive. Why? It had such a weird vibe, and it must be intentional because all those songs were of that era.
Yeah.
But maybe that's like what it reminded me of is kind of 1930s Shanghai and the Peace Hotel and kind of that beautiful Art Deco kind of era. And I appreciate what you say about the music actually is a decade or two later. But I wonder whether it is that harking back to that whole swing kind of. I guess it's pre-swing. What am I talking about? But do you know what I mean? That lovely era is kind of really exotic and lovely, and maybe that's really cool right now. Is that cool right now in Asia?
Like retro? I don't know. I guess it really jumped out during the wedding where they play. I'm just going to sing a snippet. Yeah, lies young, and that is not. At least from my point of view, that is not a song you play at a wedding, especially not at that wedding.
Why? What are the lyrics?
It's all about like the beautiful smell of the flowers, but it's a very sad song. It's a very somber song,
Right.
And with the water flowing, it just did not work for me.
You should either write an article about it or Google and see whether someone has already, because there must be music choices made. I mean, this is a blockbuster.
I think it's a really interesting critique because I enjoyed the music from just sonically, but when I think back on it, when you tell me what you've just told me, I'm like, you're right. Why?
And it must be intentional. It can't be, just by happenstance. But I don't know what John Chu wanted with this stuff. And he's a music guy, right? He made his name making music videos.
Maybe it's a recognition that some of this more strong. The hardline approach that the family take around who he's allowed to marry is like something out of that era.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
maybe
throwback
that's a throwback
to
that, and they're kind of stuck in 1950s.
Ah,
I don't know.
that's good.
I'm just trying to read into why it might be there.
Well, I mean, it is a little bit like you are supposed to marry him and raise a family, isn't it? And you'll have to give up your. Did I mention she's an economics professor at NYU? So,
the youngest we've ever
Good
had.
Lord.
Can I say that one of the things I did enjoy on my rewatch of My Big Fat Greek Wedding is how the wedding was not sensational and how even the bride and groom were like, oh, I just want to get this over and done with. For a film all about a wedding, it wasn't perfect. In fact, they didn't even want to go into the reception. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. By the way, did you know this film was nominated for a Best Writing Academy Award?
Are you serious?
Best Writing, either adapted or original, I don't know, but it got nominated.
Well, at least she was a woman recipient, so,
I suppose, but it's pretty impressive.
Wow. Wow.
I think it must be adapted, right? Adapted from another source?
From her play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it would be.
But gosh, that sucks. when her brother comes in and they share that nice moment, he's going to art school, and then he just says like the theme of the movie. What's he say? It's like like, you never stop believing yourself, sister, or something like. People don't speak like this.
Yeah. But also the voiceover was really redundant as well.
Oh, but I was so glad when the voiceover just kind of dwindled.
Yes, it stopped.
It's such a 90s thing. Like, this is me.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it reminded me of Tina Fey's Bossy Pants.
Oh, yeah?
And to some extent I was thinking, Nia Vardalos, or however I'm mispronouncing her name, is like the poor woman's Tina Fey. I hope she's not listening to this, because I don't mean that as unkindly as it sounds. But,
she didn't make My Life in Ruins, I unfortunately.
Well, there you go.
And I haven't seen the second My Big Fake Review.
I've seen the second one.
It's horrendous.
It's terrible.
The dad Gus's subplot is that he thinks he's related to Alexander the Great.
I mean, and that film came out only a couple of years ago.
That was what, 2016, 2017? 2016,
that was really recent, so that's ludicrous. But anyway, lost my train of thought, so appalled that I am.
Tina Fey.
Yeah, so the voiceover thing, because I've been reading Bossy Pants, which is basically hearing Tina Fey's voice doing very similar sorts of things. And it works in a book, and sometimes I laugh out loud. But watching the film, it did seem very tired, and as you say, very 90s. Yeah. Oh, there's an establishing shot. Oh, now we meet the family. And then you say something that is not... You know what I quite like is when voiceover is said and then what we're watching contradicts it.
Yeah, I agree.
I find that I'll always find that quite funny. But that's not what happens here.
Or abstract or poetic.
Right.
Yeah.
I think about the voiceover in Apocalypse Now. It does function as plot development, but ultimately it's kind of going into this weird, crazy psychological journey that this film's going on. It works really well.
But I don't need show and tell. Because how they say you're supposed to show, not tell. Well, at least if you're going to show me something that's the opposite and we'll have a little bit of a lull about it, but don't just tell me and then show it.
And they really spoil a lot of the movie's jokes that way, I find. What could have been really, really funny, and I still laughed. Like, I laughed out loud, but it could have been a gutbuster, was when...
You're so optimistic.
The scene where they invite Ian's parents to dinner, and all that you see with Tula's mother on the phone is that she's chopping a whole bunch of potatoes.
Yeah, right.
And that's
all the vegetables.
That's all you need to see. That's all you need to see. She doesn't need to know. She's on the other side of the phone. She can't see the potatoes. Yeah. And then, of course, we get the reaction shot when they actually pull up. But no, they have to explain it in, like, what felt like a whole minute.
In the phone conversation.
In the phone conversation. Wait, the whole family's coming? I thought we were only going to have a private little dinner. And it's like, no, you're killing the joke.
Yeah.
This would have been really, really... Well, I thought it would have been really funny.
Know. Yeah, but it would have been less unfunny.
Yeah.
So
I thought...
That's how terrible I'm feeling.
But the reaction shot, I still thought she had a great, like, face... But it's just the joke is not set up well, and I mean, this happens throughout the movie. It's like just squandered possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry. That being said, I also didn't find Crazy Rich Asians that funny.
I did laugh quite a bit, and there was a girl behind me who was loving life.
Oh yeah,
she is just having the greatest time back there.
Yeah.
And I think it was any reference to the kind of family dynamics and the family expectations. She just thought was hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see, I felt, and look, it can't be helped, because if it is how the family situation is, then that's how it is. But I felt like I've seen this movie a million times. Yeah. I've seen all of those movies a million times, and I don't even really like rom-coms, so goodness knows where I'm seeing them. But, the whole kind of, oh no, that's not the way we do it in our culture, therefore we're going to oppose your union. And it's just really tiresome.
Yeah.
So really, the only thing I got out of Crazy Rich Asians, definitely for me, on a very personal level, was it's being set in Singapore and getting to see them hurtling down the PIE, the Pan something or other expressway, and, those small things. And the odd sort of character, certainly. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of, is it Ken Jeong?
Yeah.
I'm not a massive fan of him from the Hangover movies and that, but I enjoyed him in this.
Yeah,
and
he was really good. He was really fun.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so, I could appreciate it. And certainly sometimes I was like, oh, I like that dress, or I like that outfit, or whatever. Or look how skinny her legs are, or whatever it might be that women maybe do when they're watching films. But other than that, plot-wise, couldn't care less. No. Literally didn't care, wasn't invested.
Agreed. I thought it was all right. It's funny, like, in the States, like so many Asian people are really connecting with this movie. And I don't know, as an Asian guy, like whether I'm just from a different kind of headspace, because my family's pretty traditional and we are pretty much in touch with our roots. But I couldn't relate to the Rachel character. I just could not. And I grew up in the West. My life is pretty Western now.
And you're American university educated
exactly,
as well. So
exactly. And
did you study economics?
Oh my gosh, I wish I did.
Game theory.
NYU?
I wish you had too. But yeah, so
I don't feel it. And again, some people have said this is the it's so good that this movie portrays the quintessential Asian American experience. How you don't feel like you're in the East or the West, and I don't know. Maybe it's just a personal thing. That wasn't. Wasn't
and maybe it does touch upon that little bit, that whole kind of straddling of cultures. But she's very on the nose, isn't she? The way she says, "Well, I was raised learning Mandarin, and I still remember this and that, and I do blah blah blah, but I was raised here." But I hear you that look, they're the richest people you've ever seen in any movie ever, and that's got to be, if not alienating, that's not a resonant thing, I would have thought, for the vast majority of the Asian and non-Asian audiences, So I think it's a little bit funny. I mean, to be saying like, hurrah, at last there's a movie that shows me my world. No, it doesn't, any more than Black Panther does, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? It's, it's important in a representation way, but it is not the best and final representation.
I mean, they made dumplings as a family, and that's all that matters.
And I've seen that before, but no, that was nice.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema in Context. If you enjoyed our podcast, then please share it with your film-loving friends. You can listen to Cinema in Context through SoundCloud or through Apple Podcasts, or subscribe to us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, and watch us on YouTube. These are also great places to let us know what you think of this episode, or give us suggestions for future films to discuss or compare. Look out for our next episode in a month's time, and until then, ka kite anō.